In today's episode, Max wanders through the plot looking for purpose and finding only teeth. The flunkies smash up Fazbears, right up until Fazbears smashes back. But first, Jeff hatches a scheme so flawed, it collapses under light questioning, or any questioning at all. Go! Greetings, savvy viewers. Welcome back to the Five Nights at Freddy's walkthrough movie review, here on Everything is Mid. Episode 10, FNAF Attack. Jeff's big dumb plan. So, remember back at the restaurant when Jeff was scheming with Max? Well, that plan is finally being set into motion, which means it's time to pull out the big board and talk about what might be the dumbest plan in movie history. Now, as you may recall, the idea is like this. Mike needs to hold down this job, so he looks responsible to the judge. Otherwise, evil Aunt Jane gets custody of his little sister Abby. Jane, meanwhile, needs that custody money. She needs it bad, folks. She needs it so bad. The film makes sure we know she's desperate for those state checks. We just never find out why. Maybe she's in debt to her bookie. So Jane's brilliant idea? Hire Jeff and his dim-witted crew to trash the restaurant. So the, as yet unseen, owner of the restaurant will be furious with Mike, fire him, and voila! Jane gets Abby and the state money. There's just one tiny problem. None of this makes any sense. First question, who exactly is the daytime security guard at Freddy's? Because as far as we can tell, there isn't one. So if the break-in happens during the day, who's watching the place? Not Mike. He works nights. Second question, if the flunkies destroy Mike's place while Mike is off the clock, how exactly is that Mike's fault? Shouldn't the blame go to the imaginary day shift guy who doesn't exist? Or maybe the owner for not hiring one in the first place? And third, why on God's green earth would the owner fire Mike for not doing his job at a time when he literally wasn't supposed to be doing his job? If the movie tried to hold this plan up to the light, it would evaporate faster than a Fazbear vent door on night 6. Now, you might say, but Mike forgot to lock up when he left. And here's the thing. If Mike didn't lock up, then yes, he'd be responsible. But if that's the card they want to play, the movie needs to actually set that up. Instead, the movie goes out of its way to show Mike locking up the front door. So as far as we can tell, he's doing his job. As for the garage door, the one that Jeff and the crew sneak through, that's where things get a little fuzzy. We see Jeff holding a crowbar, but did he use it to get in, or is it just to wreck the place once he's already inside? Because if it's the former, it means forced entry, and in that case, it's clearly not Mike's fault. Either way, the issue of the locks is about to linger like an animatronic in your blind spot. So let's go ahead and pin that up on the big board for reference. At the end of the day, I don't think Jeff actually cares about Jane's plan. He's not some criminal mastermind. He's just a thug who saw a chance to make a quick buck smashing up some stuff. So yes, this plan's logic is about as sound as William Afton's parenting decisions. And that's kind of a problem, considering it's a key plot point that's driving the entire middle act. So I guess that answers this question and clears our first note from the big board. Jeff, unfortunately, is no genius. Which is why we're calling this Jeff's Big Dumb Plan. When animatronics attack. It's time to finally get to the part of the movie everyone has been waiting for, the bit when animatronics attack. And we are going to jump right into that, but first, I just want to say, why not subscribe to the channel and give us a like while you're down there. Also, while I think the murderous machines do deliver on the fan service, their victims fall short of being anything more than simply functional fodder. But things being what they are, let's meet the crew. Our shrewd and opportunistic leader, Jeff, his slump of a sister, Max, the hapless young Carl, and the equally hapless old Hank. Operation Trash the Joint. Scene 1. Carl in the kitchen. Carl, the doofiest of the crew, gets confronted by Chica and the bad cupcake. The actor playing Carl mugs it up nicely, and the director leans cartoony here, which works well given the PG-13 tone. In the movies, this is Carl. In the game lore, this cupcake is named Carl.
Coincidence? I think not!
The standout moment for me is the end bit with the match cut from Cupcake attacking Carl to a chair smashing into the prize counter in the next scene. Simple, fun, and satisfying. Not to mention, savvy editing. Sugar is bad for you! Okay, as for Carl's role in this gang of ne'er-do-wells, we'll get to that. Operation Trash the Joint. Scene 2. Hank in the dining room. Hank, the eldest of the flunkies and easily the least prepared for any real crisis, hears the commotion and glances into the pass-through window. There, he spots Cupcake latched onto Carl's face, while Chica watches with narrowed, almost taunting intensity. It's another small but effective beat that sells the animatronics as genuinely threatening, all the while staying within the PG-13 guardrails the filmmakers are clearly projecting. Hank bolts in a panic and dives into the maintenance closet, where Bonnie is waiting like someone who RSVP'd yes to Hank's panic attack. And honestly, this is my favorite horror moment in this whole midday meltdown. The bloody hand dragging down the glass lands with real weight. It's a rare moment where the movie finally taps into the ominous energy promised way back with the bear chair. For a franchise that's intentionally leaning more cartoony to keep the younger fans in the audience, this one shot actually digs in and brings up some gory gravity. It puts the horror in this horror movie. Rabbit Rat! Could the movie build on Hank's haggard appearance with a little more character depth? We've got some ideas. But first, all this current chaos funnels beautifully into the next beat with Jeff. Operation Trash the Joint. Scene 3. Jeff in the office. I like how they used each of the characters witnessing an attack as a transition into their own attack. Hank saw Carl getting attacked, Hank gets attacked, and now Jeff sees Hank, which leads to Jeff's attack. We here at the EIM editorial offices like to celebrate the good while we break down the bad. And this moment is definitely worthy of storytelling celebration. This whole use of the hallway is really nicely done. Bonnie stepping out of the closet, dropping the crowbar as a way of marking Jeff's transition into fear. The running, dropping the stolen tokens. It's all fantastic. Chica releases Cupcake into the vents. Suddenly the office is a cage of suspense. Finally, the coast seems clear. Jeff makes a break for it, but it's not to be.
Foiled by Fox.
Meanwhile, Max is at the getaway car, wishing she listened to more Taylor Swift. Because if she did, she'd already know that nothing good starts in a getaway car. But no, so here we are. Operation Trash the Joint. Scene 4. Getting anxious, Max is lured into Fazbear's by a mysterious child who leads her deeper into the darkness. Confused, she follows him into a storage room, where she finds herself facing Freddy. Max's choice to investigate leads to the classic shadow play moment where Freddy's mouth chomps her in half. In this way, the scene handles her rated R death in a PG-13 kind of way. Then very cleverly cuts immediately to a cartoon on the television at Abby's house. It's funny, shocking, and keeps the tone light, while delivering a punchline that is actually pretty dark. And with that, all four flunkies have met their FNAF fates. The sequence delivers exactly what the fans want. Animatronics on the move, tense confrontations, and clever staging. The horror is toned down to PG-13, keeping it lighter and more cartoony, which feels true to the IP. That does limit the depth to the fear, but it's a deliberate choice, and the movie makes it work for a family-friendly audience. But these characters basically exist for the sole reason of being dispatched, because we can't let Freddy and his mechanical minions rip through our lead characters, so we need some disposable deplorables. My issue here is that, once again, the screenwriters have chosen expediency over creativity. I don't mean with the kills, I mean with the characters themselves. As plot devices, Carl, Hank, Jeff, and Max exist to be fodder for Freddy and his friends. That's their most basic function, sure. Jeff and Max get a little bit more than the others. But why doesn't the movie add any layers on top of that basic functionality to make them actual, I don't know, if not to have fully developed character arcs with a beginning, middle, and end? At the very least, a little more depth for entertainment's sake? Once again, this lack of effort in the character department betrays the fact that the filmmakers are aiming so disappointingly low. Let's look at the characters. Carl is just the doofy young punk, and that's it. But why not make him the inexperienced member? The new guy, the one who has to take everyone else's crap. We could see in the way that the others talk down to him, tease him.
Don't be so gullible, McFly!
And maybe because of that, Carl sees today's smash and grab as his shot to prove himself. So he takes on the riskier job, or at the very least, he rushes in to show he's not afraid to get his hands dirty. Then his bravery gets tested when he finally meets his animatronic fate. Will he die with the courage that he insists he has? Or does he fold into a whimpering puddle, proving everyone right that he is just a baby? It's a tiny arc, microscopic even, but it would still count as something. we'd pose a question about who Carl really is, and then peel back one layer to reveal the answer. Okay, how about a really lazy solution that's only slightly less lazy than what they gave us? We already know he's going to end up in the kitchen, so establish he's hungry when they arrive at the restaurant. While everyone else is smashing up the place, Carl is in the kitchen looking for food. Yes, it makes zero sense. He's in an abandoned restaurant, but Carl's a doof, so that tracks. And ultimately, he's searching for food, and he ends up getting eaten by food. See, it's not a big arc, not even a tiny arc, but it is a setup and a payoff, a joke, a beat, a something, instead of a nothing. What about Hank? Hank is the oldest guy in the gang, and he looks rough. He's comically in over his head, the kind of dude who's clearly lived several lifetimes of bad decisions.
Hey now.
But what do we actually know about him? Nothing. Zero. He's just there. But honestly, just looking at him, I'm thinking make him a stoner. Or better yet, go with the classic washed up drunk.
I'm kidding.
We don't need to even show him drinking. He could just show up and everyone instantly clocks it. Yep, Hank's been drinking again. Maybe Carl gives him grief about it, trying to prove he's the serious one. Carl might be inexperienced, but at least he's not a sloppy mess like Hank. Hank, unfazed, fires back a lazy insult as he lifts his flask and gives a little shake and throws his eyebrows. Carl tries to grab the flask, fails miserably. Hank just casually keeps it out of his reach, as Carl keeps flailing around trying to grab it. The whole thing looks like amateur hour. Then Jeff steps in, the no-nonsense leader, shutting them down and telling everyone to dial in. And suddenly, we've reinforced 3 characters with one exchange. Carl's insecurity, Hank's vice, and Jeff's authority. Give Max a little moment of obvious, I can't believe I'm stuck with these idiots. And boom, the whole crew is defined. Then, inside Fazbear's, Hank's drunken slapstick naturally leads him to notice Cupcake mauling Carl. He does the classic double take, then blames this hallucination on his flask and throws it away. Only it's the sound of that flask that alerts Chica, turning her gaze on him. From there, the sequence can unfold exactly as written, with one improvement. Instead of the closet door mysteriously locking itself, Hank traps himself in because he's too drunk to operate the doorknob under pressure. Same structure, same beats, but now Hank's personal vice plays a direct hand in his downfall. A little flavor, a little personality, and suddenly we've got a real character instead of a placeholder in a leather jacket. Then there's Jeff. Now, we just covered how we could remind everyone that he runs this band of malfeasant misfits. But right now, let's take a look at the fact that Max and Jeff are supposed to be brother and sister. We know this because the movie tells us so in one line of dialogue.
Screw you, lady. My sister went over every inch of that dump 1,000 times.
But then never goes on to do one single thing to show it. There's no bond. There's no sense of shared history. Nothing suggests that these two characters have spent more than 15 minutes on the same planet, let alone grown up in the same house. That feels like such a missed opportunity. What drives Jeff to be such an intense would-be criminal? Could it tie back to his family? Could it be revealed through his relationship with Max? There's a rich parallel sitting right there, Mike and Abby on one side, Jeff and Max on the other. Maybe Jeff and Max grew up financially destitute after losing their parents. Like Mike, Jeff felt the weight of keeping a younger sibling safe. But unlike Mike, Jeff was willing to cross the line to do it. Mike wears a security jacket, protecting property. Jeff breaks in, steals, destroys. He's the shadow version of the same impulse. A dark mirror of the brother-sister dynamic the movie keeps spotlighting. And the irony writes itself. Jeff went down this path to protect his little sister, and it ultimately leads straight to her demise. It's clean, it's thematic. It could have given the subplot a little emotional backbone, instead of leaving Jeff as the angry guy with a crowbar who's looking for a buck. So, anyway, we didn't get any depth in these characters, but what we did get was enough mechanical menace to finally cash the checks that this franchise has been writing for years. The animatronics have finally shown that they're more than just spooky hallway set dressing. They're fully operational nightmare-fueled delivery systems. But what else would you expect when animatronics attack? So, you see what I'm talking about with the missed opportunities on the character side? If you agree, why don't you hop down and give me a thumbs up? And if you don't, then you're objectively wrong, but you give me a thumbs down. Either way, hop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Do you think my character suggestions to give them a little bit more flavor are good? Or maybe not. Maybe the characters are better developed in other media? Probably, but I'm only looking at what's in this media, the film specifically, so it doesn't matter to me if they're better developed in other media, but I am curious. Anyway, let me know. And now, back to the edit. Hopes and Screams. In 1978's first blockbuster sequel, Jaws 2, Chief Brody has two boys, a teenager and his tag-along little brother. The teen mostly tolerates the kid, but one of the teen's friends, Marge, goes out of her way to be kind to him, which instantly puts the audience on her side.
Come on, you can go out in my boat.
She is not a deep character. She barely gets an arc, if you could call it that, but she's a sweet guardian angel type who ultimately makes the big heroic self-sacrifice to save a child. Again, it's not a great movie, and not a particularly well-developed character, but it's a choice, a clear, purposeful choice. And like Five Nights at Freddy's, the monster mouth that gets her in the end is filled with gears and pistons. Now, they didn't have to make the same choice with Max, but they could have, and if they had, Max would have been far more sympathetic. Imagine her dying to save Abby, or even Mike. They could have given Max redemption after she's been secretly working against our heroes for the first half of the movie. Max finally standing up for herself and doing the right thing. It would have made her death tragic instead of trivial. And don't get me wrong, it's a cool FNAF moment, and easily one of the most memorable shots in the film, but it's not a character moment. Okay, before we join the movie and heading over to Abby's house, I think it's finally time to deliver on the promise of taking a closer look at Max. With a little big board character autopsy we're calling Hopes and Screams. A character is defined by their wants and needs, and the actions they're willing to take to pursue them. So using that metric, who is Max anyway? What hopes and dreams was she chasing? We don't know a lot. What's her family situation? Why have she and her brother Jeff resorted to these lives of deceit and destruction? What's Max's relationship to Mike? How did they meet? Was it before the Aunt Jane arrangement, or because of it? The movie doesn't answer any of these questions, which is a shame, because even answering just one of them would have given Max a shot at being a real character. As for her dreams, the only thing we can say for certain is that she wishes she could get married, or at least she laments that no one will buy her a ring. So the one confirmed thing we know about Max is that she's single and lonely. However, despite how few scenes she gets, none of those scenes actually explore that desire. Maybe she likes Mike, but we never once see her behaving like that's true. She's friendly towards Mike, but nothing about her behavior says smitten.
Oh.
Why not let her be indifferent about spying for Aunt Jane until she actually does it? And then she finds herself genuinely liking Mike and Abby? Suddenly, she doesn't want to lie to them anymore. Jeff, concerned about her silly emotions, refuses to let her ruin the plan and pushes to keep her spying. It all comes to a head when Max finally reaches her breaking point. She calls Mike, ready to confess everything. But just as he answers, Jeff pulls up and honks the horn. Time to go. Max hears Mike on the phone. Hello? Hello? She looks over to Jeff, and her resolve collapses. She hangs up. This was the decision point. If she'd told the truth and stood up to Jeff, she wouldn't have gone to Fazbear's. She would have lived. Instead, she caves, follows Jeff to Fazbear's, and meets her fate. Another route. Make Jeff her boyfriend, not her brother. Jeff keeps stringing her along, and Max wants that ring. But Jeff insists he can't afford to marry her yet. That's why he's committing crimes. She doesn't like it.
No way.
But she tolerates it because she wants the relationship to work. As she gets to know Mike and Abby, she starts to feel guilty. She gives Jeff an ultimatum, and he promises they'll get married after the big Aunt Jane payday. Tempted by the promise of finally getting her ring, Max tells her last lie to Mike and Abby. Then she follows Jeff to Fazbear's, unaware that her choice has sealed her doom. In both scenarios, Max's fate is tied directly to her own choices, her dreams, her flaws, her moments of courage and cowardice. Her death then becomes the tragic end of her own personal arc, instead of the random causality of proximity. Max's whole purpose in this movie is to deliver intel to Aunt Jane, and once she drops that plot-critical detail about Mike needing his security job, the movie just parks her on the sidelines, like someone forgot to hit resume quest. After that, she just lingers, floating from scene to scene with all the intention of a screensaver. Well, until the script remembers she exists and feeds her to Freddy, who bites her in half like he's reenacting a Bite of 87 training video. And just like that, Max exits the story the same way she lived in it, stuck in a nondescript limbo, somewhere between hopes and screams. So Jeff's plan isn't exactly criminal mastermind material. And while Freddy and company absolutely deliver on the mechanical menace, it never quite reaches the white-knuckle tension that the games are famous for. And Max's send-off ends up being the clearest sign yet that this script goes light on character and heavy on what could have been. You've been watching episode 10 in our Five Nights at Freddy's series, FNAF Attack. In our next episode, friends are made, the fort gets built, and the movie officially loses the plot. Probably titled Night 4 Fail. We'll be seeing ya.